I'm about to show you this secret trend line that nobody is paying attention to that will predict when Bitcoin will hit $1 million. You see, this trend line has been incredibly accurate since 2013, with about equal amount of time below as above, and everything reverts back to the mean. Everything reverts back to this trend line. This trend line is our secret weapon, and I'm about to unveil when Bitcoin will reach $1 million. Hint, you see that green arrow up in the corner? That's when Bitcoin is going to reach $1 million. I'm going to tell you when inside this video. Welcome, I'm Steve. Here we deliver honest, sponsorship-free TA with genuine value. Subscribe for a no BS approach that actually helps you. Subscribe. Bitcoin US dollar index, and we are on the 1 month chart. In order for us to figure out when Bitcoin could hit $1 million, we have to look at all of the facts that are right in front of us. This trend line is one that I've been following for years and years and years. And some years we have below this trend line, and some years we have above said trend line. But if you take all of the candles that we have on our screen, we've got almost equal candles above and below. Sometimes when we go above, we go a little bit higher. Sometimes when we go below, we go a little bit lower. But like all math equations, everything reverts back to the mean, the average. And that is this yellow line. For example, this yellow line back here in 2015, in November 2015, we were hovering at about $546. And you can see that we held resistance at this trend line. Fast forward to here in 2020, COVID crash, we came right back down to this trend line. In other words, we spend certain amount of years above and certain amount of years below. From the years of 2014 to the years of 2017, we spent below this trend line, and from the years of about 2017 up until roughly 2022, we spent above said trend line. And for the better part of this entire cycle, we've been battling this trend line, mostly below and a little bit above. Now, this trend line is incredibly interesting. It's a trend line I've been following for years. So I wanted to extend this trend line and figure out where Bitcoin is going. Because let's face it, whether you're a mathematician or not, you look at this trend line and you understand it. It's pointing up, and Bitcoin's price has basically been following this trajectory of trend line. And by the way, this trend line has held critical support and critical resistance for more than 12 years. So it's time that we unveil this trend line. It's time that we look deeper at this trend line, and it's time that we figure out when could this thing hit $1 million? Because let's face it, if we fast forward to the years of 2026, when Bitcoin is likely to be in a midst of a bear market, we look at July 2026, we might be below this trend line. But also this trend line will be at $165,000. So just to know that Bitcoin will have this trend line next year, in the middle of next year at 165,000, we want to know, when is this thing going to get to $1 million Bitcoin? I find things like this fascinating because it grabs all sorts of historical data into one simple to easy to understand chart that anybody can look at and they can understand it right away. So, for example, when you look at our recent prices, right? 2022 was our bottom. We had the trend line at 24,000 and we dropped all the way down to 15,000. But sometimes we have the trend line here, like in August 21, the price is at 11,000, but we jumped all the way up to 70. So just knowing that this trend line, oftentimes, no hype, just facts, subscribe and relax. In the peak of the bull, jumps up its furthest from this trend line, and just like the peak of the bear, drops down the furthest from this trend line. So I want to follow it up with you, and let's go on a journey. Let's say we are in 2027, and let's hypothetically say That's when the bull run really starts to take form. The next market cycle should begin roughly in 2027. So what would that take us to? Because usually in the bear market, we're going to be below this trend line, right? But this trend line is rising. So by the time that the bull run really starts, we have our trend line at $219,000. And roughly in 2027, we should be battling up somewhere to this trend line, potentially getting resistance. So by the time we reach October 2027, we're up to $328,000. In other words, by the end of 2027, we may play a clip from this video because Bitcoin should be around $300,000, which is phenomenal for everybody in the crypto space. But more importantly, we want to know when this thing could potentially reach $1 million. Now, I know many of you are going to think, hey, it's definitely going to $1 million in this market cycle that we're in right now, because that's what's spread across social media and all of the news outlets. But in my previous video, I showed you based on math that that's just not logical. What is more logical is this trend line. So as we reach the glory days of the bull run and we start getting into 2028, when the market really starts heating up, we're looking at, let's call it May 1st, 2028. Bull run is heating up. Bull run is starting to get full throttle. Bull run is starting to gain all sorts of mainstream attention. Why? Because it's on its road to $1 million. And at the time, May 1st, 2028, we have our trend line sitting at $436,000 Bitcoin, which is phenomenal. So let's take it a step further. Let's say we're in the latter parts of the stages of the bull run and we're towards the beginning of 2029. Now, 2029 is scheduled to be where the heat of the bull run is taking form. The latter part especially, but especially the year 2029. In the beginning of 2029, our trend line is sitting at $600,000 Bitcoin. And once again, that's when the market really starts heating up. That's when the bull run takes full form. And that's when the world is captivated from all areas. Everybody paying attention to what Bitcoin is going to do next. And by the way, we're getting really close to this green arrow right here, because this green arrow is signaling when Bitcoin could reach $1 million, according to this trend line that since 2013 has seen it be incredibly accurate with support and resistance. Now, as we reach the latter parts of the bull run of the next cycle, 2029, that's when things absolutely go wild. We talked about January 2029 being 600,000 Bitcoin. If we just fast forward to March 2029, we're looking at almost $700,000 Bitcoin. And as we reach towards potentially June, July, where things usually get a little bit quiet, especially in August and September, but once you reach October, we are looking at $942,000 Bitcoin. And when could Bitcoin reach that $1 million? We're talking about December 2029. We're talking about the latter part of next market cycle, having an absolute realistic chance to reach $1 million in the next market cycle. So mark your calendars, the year 2029. Maybe we will replay this clip, but there is a strong chance that Bitcoin reaches $1 million in the year 2029. Trade like a tourist or go with the pros. The FFA is where the real ones go. Link in description.